Today, we are going to find out the true story of one of the most mysterious figures in world history, Joan of Arc, a simple village girl from France, born in the early 1400s, in a time when war, fear, and chaos ruled the country. And in this video, we are going to understand how she went from an ordinary life to becoming a leader who changed the fate of a nation. So let's start with the beginning. Where was Joan of Arc born, and what was her early life like? Then comes the real mystery. Why did soldiers trust a 17-year-old girl as their leader? And even more strange, were Joan's visions real or just belief? But her journey was not easy. How did she survive such dangerous war battles? And finally, why was she later captured and executed? This story is full of mystery, courage, and questions that history still cannot fully explain. And trust me, this video is going to get more and more interesting as it goes on. So make sure you watch till the end, because every answer will change the way you see Joan of Arc forever. Imagine a world caught completely in the crosshairs of history. The year is 1412. In the Meuse Valley of northeastern France, a girl named Joan is born in the village of Domremy. But her childhood home isn't a peaceful, quiet paradise. It is a dangerous, volatile borderland, literally an island of loyalty to the French crown, completely surrounded by hostile enemy forces during the brutal, generational conflict known as the 100 Years' War. Popular myths often paint Joan as a broke, completely uneducated shepherd girl who wandered out of the dark woods. But the actual historical records tell a very different story. Joan's family was actually quite well off for peasants. They lived in the only stone house in the entire village, located right next to the local church. Her father, Jacques d'Arc, wasn't just a simple farmer, he was the village dean. He collected local taxes, managed the community's defense budgets, and ran a sprawling 50-acre farm. Joan grew up listening to adult conversations at the dinner table about property rights, local laws, and military defense strategy. Her day-to-day life was shaped by intense, practical hard work. Her mother taught her to sew and spin wool so exceptionally well that Joan later proudly boasted she could outspin any woman in France. During harvest season, she was out in the fields with a pitchfork alongside her brothers. When enemy Burgundian raiders launched surprise attacks on the village, Joan helped drive the community's cattle to a fortified island fortress for survival. But alongside this gritty resilience was a deep, unshakable spiritual life. Joan would drop everything and run from the fields to the altar the very second she heard the church bells ring. She lived in a world where ancient local folklore blended seamlessly with Orthodox Catholic faith, setting the stage for a dramatic turning point. When she was just 13 years old, everything changed. Standing in her father's garden under the hot summer sun, she suddenly saw a blinding, radiant light and heard an overwhelming voice that terrified her. It was Saint Michael the Archangel, telling her to be a good child and delivering a terrifying, divine military destiny straight into her lap. How on earth did an uneducated, 17-year-old teenage peasant girl get hardened, cynical, veteran military soldiers to follow her straight into the jaws of death? It sounds completely impossible, but Joan possessed a brilliant understanding of psychological warfare. First, she tapped directly into a powerful cultural prophecy that was spreading like wildfire across the desperate French population. The prophecy foretold that while a woman had previously ruined France, a pure virgin from the ancient oak woods of Lorraine would emerge to completely save the kingdom. Joan fit this exact mythical description perfectly, instantly giving hope to a population on the brink of collapse. Second, she kept delivering undeniable proof to the skeptics. When she finally gained access to the royal court at Chinon, she reportedly picked the French crown prince, the Dauphin Charles, right out of a massive crowd of courtiers while he was wearing a heavy disguise. Shortly after, she claimed her mysterious voices told her about an ancient, holy sword buried directly behind the altar of the church of Saint Catherine de Fierbois. When royal armorers dug up the floorboards, they found a rust-covered sword exactly where she predicted. To a superstitious, deeply religious army, this wasn't just luck, it was an absolute miracle. But Joan didn't just win them over with signs. She completely revolutionized the broken culture of the French military. The moment she took charge, she kicked all prostitutes out of the military camps, banned explicit swearing under threat of punishment, and forced her rugged, battle-worn soldiers to attend confession and Holy Mass. This radical moral cleanup completely broke the psychological trauma of their previous defeats. Suddenly, French soldiers believed that God Almighty was on their side, and the terrifying myth of English invincibility was instantly shattered. She earned their deep respect by sharing their exact risks, riding at the absolute front of the lines, holding her famous white banner high as a moral anchor for the men. To truly understand the phenomenon of Joan of Arc, we have to confront the ultimate mystery. Were her legendary visions actually real, or was it all a complex product of her own mind? While modern historians cannot scientifically validate the supernatural origin of her voices today, the rigorous historical records of her trials confirm one undeniable truth. Joan herself was 100% convinced of their physical, tangible reality. This wasn't just a quiet, internal thought process. Joan testified under oath that she saw blinding lights, looked human figures directly in the eye, smelled their beautiful, supernatural fragrance, and literally embraced the saints when they visited her. Her unwavering belief was so absolute that she willingly walked into deadly, high-casualty war zones solely because of those celestial instructions. Modern medical science, however, has put forward several fascinating alternative hypotheses. The leading neurological diagnosis among modern scholars is a very specific condition known as idiopathic partial epilepsy with auditory features. This rare condition could explain the sudden, brief sensory seizures that were consistently triggered by specific external sounds. Most notably, the ringing of those heavy church bells that Joan was completely obsessed with since early childhood. Other skeptics have occasionally suggested schizophrenia, but specialists overwhelmingly dismiss this diagnosis because of Joan's exceptional high-level functionality. A person suffering from untreated schizophrenia since the age of 13 would almost certainly display highly disorganized thoughts, confusion, and a severe decline in cognitive abilities over time. Joan, on the other hand, was an absolute intellectual powerhouse. Even under extreme stress and isolation, she displayed brilliant military tactics, incredible memory, and a razor-sharp wit that routinely outsmarted university-trained legal interrogators.